Hey Scott,
Yeah.
who are we visiting today? Is it a comedian?
No, no,
Author?
no, not even close.
It's got to be somebody musical.
No musicians here today.
So who are we seeing?
How do I say this politely? He's a bastard covered bastard with bastard filling. He's probably, without a doubt, the single greatest piece of Hey everybody, I'm Scott Stanton, the original Tombstone tourist, and today we're at Oakwood Cemetery in the historic Raleigh, North Carolina. And who do we have today? Who's today's subject in section 1? Berrien Upshaw, better known as Rhett Upshaw. Now, Rhett Upshaw was a foul-mouthed, horrible attitude, violent man, raging alcoholic, and a wife beater. And those are just some of his best qualities. He was trouble from day one. He never completed anything that he attempted. He half-assed everything. Not a pleasant man. Well, guess what? His fortunes changed in about 1921 when he was dating perhaps the most beautiful, vivacious woman of culture and society, and most importantly wealth, because the guy didn't have a job, a woman named Margaret. Now Margaret fell in love with him. She had a number of suitors, but she picked Berrien Upshaw over everybody else. In fact, you can see in this picture here, this is an actual picture of their wedding party. We have Mr. Upshaw is right in the middle, the tall, handsome, dashing man. That is Margaret hanging on to him to the right. And most importantly, two from the left, that is John Marsh. We'll come back to him. He was the best man at this wedding. So here's the basic timeline. In 1922, she gets married to Rhett Upshaw. Rhett was his nickname. Within 4 months, he left the house, went in the Midwest, and it got back to the family that he was a bootlegger and a runner of illicit stolen merchandise, things like that. Not a good guy. He comes back 4 months later, demands that she perform her wifely duties. She resists. He starts beating her around the arms and the body. The housekeeper comes running down. She gets beaten up. He throws her on the bed. They beat her really badly and forced him out of the house. Now, Mr. Upshaw kind of came and went in her life, but he eventually was paid off and he left for good. So a year later, she marries John Marsh, the best man, and he was a fabulous guy. And so John Marsh was there about a year into the marriage and said, you know what, I'm tired of lugging all these books from the library for you to read. You're such a voracious reader and you're a bright woman. Why don't you write your own book? So that's what Margaret Mitchell did. Over the next several years, she wrote Gone with the Wind. So in 1936, hoping to sell 5,000, the book's released. That sold 1 million overnight. 3 years later, what do we have? We have the movie Gone with the Wind. In the meantime, in the 1940s, Mr. Upshaw here is committed to an insane asylum, most likely due to alcohol abuse. And then in 1949, early 1949, he leapt from the window of a Salvation Army building in Galveston, Texas. Now, it's really funny because you read some of the reports and they make it sound very she or nice. That it was an old hotel he killed himself, threw himself out of. No, it was actually a flop house. That was the term back in the day for just down on their luck and whatnot men. And he killed himself, throwing himself out the window. A short time later in August, Margaret Mitchell was killed by a drunk driver in Atlanta crossing the street to go to a movie with John. She lingered for a couple of days and passed away. So you're probably going, Scott, what's the point of this story? Why are we sitting here at the grave of Mr. Upshaw when you're talking about Gone with the Wind? Well, many literary experts will tell you that Mr. Upshaw was, in fact, the model for Rhett Butler. That's right, the Clark Gable character in Gone with the Wind. Dashing, good-looking, rich, debonair, risk-taker. Okay? Wow. Close, but no cigar. No, it is not true whatsoever. First of all, Margaret Mitchell said, in so many words, he was not the model for Rhett Butler. But a lot of people point out, look, Rhett. Okay, his nickname was Red because of his hair. Rhett Butler, Rhett was a famous family, well-to-do in the South. She co-opted that name. That's kind of where the story ends there for that. Except Margaret Mitchell did say privately that Rhett Butler was who she thought Mr. Upshaw would be. And he disappointed her very quickly after that ring was put on. So you're probably wondering, okay, who is Rhett Butler based upon? Because all of her characters are based on people that she met through life. Rhett Butler was actually fashioned after George Trenholm. I believe that's his correct name. And he was the Confederate Secretary of the Treasury. He was the guy that helped fund the war effort for the South during the Civil War. Now, what's interesting is Rhett Butler and George, their backstories intermingle perfectly. They both were born and raised in Charleston. They were both debonair, wealthy, well-mannered, risk takers. In the book, as well as in George's real life, George had over 60 boats, fast boats, that he used to trade cotton over in England and then come on back with guns, ammunition, and other armaments to fund the war effort. They had same political views, and they also had, they were both arrested after the war, probably for piracy, or not piracy, but profiteering. And so that was very true. George was a very wealthy man. In fact, he made personally $9 million towards the end of the war in a single year, just from his trade and the 60 boats. I believe that 10% of Rhett Butler is Berrien Upshaw, and I believe the other 90% is George. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I am Scott Stanton, the original Tombstone Tourist. You know what to do. Go to my website, The Tombstone Tourist, for more information. And if you disagree with me, because I am not a Gone with the Wind expert, leave it in the comments. Until then, thank you for your support. Have a great day. The reason that Margaret fell for Mr. Upshaw here is he was suave, debonair. He could talk the panties off any girl. Okay, I cannot say that. No, we are not putting that in the